Good morning, my friends. I'm happy to have time with you again this week. Um, this week, our lesson is out of Genesis chapter 25, verses 21 through 34. Please hear the word of the Lord. Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was barren, and the Lord answered him, and Rebekah, his wife, conceived. But the children struggled together within her, and she said, "If it is so, why then am I this way?" So she went to inquire of the Lord, and the Lord said to her, "Two nations are in your womb, and two people will be separated from your body, and one person shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger." When her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in the womb. Now the first came out red, all over like a hairy garment, and they named him Esau. Afterward, his brother came forth, and his hand was holding on to Esau's heel. So his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 60 years old when she gave birth to them. When the boys grew up, Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the field, but Jacob was a peaceful man, living in tents. Now Isaac loved Esau because he had a taste for game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. When Jacob had cooked stew, Esau came in from the field and was famished. And Esau said to Jacob, "Please let me have a shallow bowl of that red stuff, for I am famished." Therefore his name was called Edom. But Jacob said, "First, sell me your birthright." Esau said, "Behold, I'm about to die, so of what use is the birthright to me?" And Jacob said, "First swear to me." So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and he ate and drank, and rose and went on his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. Well, many people think that the Bible is a series of disjointed stories. This is one of them. But in reality, it is a single story telling us what went wrong with the human race and what God did about it and how it's all going to end. It's natural for us as parents to want our children to have a better life than we had. The problem is we only think of better in terms of stuff, material things, better occupation, better house, better retirement plan. However, the birthright and the blessing in the Bible, although it did include stuff, was primarily about receiving the favor of God in your life. In our passage in Genesis today, we hear the story of Jacob and Esau, the sons of Isaac and Rebekah. I guess they are a family that today we would define as dysfunctional. It's a story of a broken family, exhibited by parents who are not on the same page, each preferring one child over the other. Esau was Isaac's favorite because he was a manly man, kind of man who liked hunting and fishing and being out in the wild with dad, while Jacob was more of a mama's boy who stayed in the tent and helped her with cooking. And Jacob, like mama, was a schemer. Sin is the problem all around, and there's plenty of it to go around for everybody in this tale. One of Isaac's sons will be blessed by God. That's been stipulated. God tells Rachel so. And the son that he has anointed to be blessed is Jacob, the younger of the two, which was very much against the traditional way of doing things in their society at the time. It was always the eldest who got the blessing and the birthright. However, Isaac is not listening to God, and he's more interested in following the tradition, besides which his oldest Esau is his favorite after all, so he wants him to have the blessing. Isaac is basically telling God, I don't like your plan, and I have a plan of my own, and so I'm going to supersede your plan and put mine in place. On the other hand, we have Rachel, who knows what God says, but doesn't trust God enough to allow him to bring it about. So she thinks she has to take control and help God out in this situation by devising a plan. She needs to help him fulfill his purposes. He certainly isn't capable without her assistance. And so she devises this elaborate scheme. Jacob's sin is that he agrees with mom and participates in the employment of this scheme. Their big scheme is to beat Esau out of the birthright and out of the blessing, which is rightly his. As the oldest son, that's what he should have had, but Isaac's going to trick him out of it. Esau's sin is despising God's plan. That's the last sentence, the last verse in our reading. And not being thankful for what God will provide, and giving more value to his own belly than he did to the birthright. He willingly gives Jacob the birthright in exchange for a bowl of stew. Isaac, who at this point is elderly and fearing his days are numbered, calls in Esau and asks him to go hunt for game, make a stew, and bring it to him so that he can bless him before he passes. Rebekah overhears this conversation and goes into action. When Esau leaves to go hunt, she sends Jacob out to fetch game and beat Esau to the punch, which he does. Rebekah then dresses Jacob in Esau's clothes so that he smells like Esau, and covers his hands and his neck in goat skin because Esau was very hairy and Jacob was not. So Isaac, when he touches the hairy skin, will think it's Esau and therefore give Jacob the blessing. Common sense says, why would God bless Jacob, who cooked up with his mother this scheme? What was worse? Was Esau not placing value on his inheritance and willingly giving it up, as we're told in verse 27, for a mere piece of bread and some lentil stew? Or was Jacob scheming to get the birthright by not trusting God any less of a sin? The writer in Hebrews holds Esau up as someone to disdain or not emulate. Verse 12, verses 16 and 17 tells us not to be like Esau, who for a single meal sold his inheritance, and afterwards, when he sought the blessing with tears, was rejected. His issue was that he was not living in the certain hope of God, but only in what his flesh wanted. I'm hungry. Feed me. I do not care about anything except my appetite. As I mentioned last week, we have a tendency to be that person and then say, well, it seemed like the right idea at the time. God gives us these character studies throughout the Bible as teaching tools. He wants us to see ourselves and where we are similar to these characters. He provides characters in contrast like Esau and Jacob, or like David and Saul. But even the ones that we would assign as maybe the good guys in the story are really not all that good, certainly not perfect by any means or standards. Jacob was not, neither was David. However, they did have a desire for the things of God and not just the things of this world. And that seems to be the difference. It not only made a difference in their life, but also in the generations to follow. One of the things that we see in Esau and Saul, that they're men who are driven and impulsive and shallow. They want to do what they want to do without regard to God. Who turns one's back on an inheritance for a pot of stew? Well, I would assess that we are equally as guilty. When our appetites are on the line, we compromise. When King David's sexual appetite was on the line, did he not compromise? When Achan's appetite for material goods was on the line, did he not compromise? When Saul's appetite for power was on the line, did he not compromise? The enemy blinds us to not think of the consequences of our actions. We think we're like God, and we will not have any consequences. No one commits murder or robs a bank thinking that they are going to get caught. No. A pot of stew was more important to them than the purposes of God. That's the simple fact. Our world, more than ever, offers us instant gratification. When we fix our eyes on something, we want it badly, and it blurs our vision to see what really has eternal value. A neurological researcher explained in an article how whenever we have something that we see that we really desire, it lights up a particular portion of our brain. But simultaneously, it significantly diminishes our capacity in the area that exercises judgment. Ashley Madison is a Canadian-based online dating service for people who are married. Its slogan is, "Life is short. Have an affair." We as people have more and do more than any generation before us. but it has not given us contentment or peace. We're still searching for more, bigger, better. And that just marches us into a spiritual abyss. Last year, a group of hackers broke into Ashley Madison's online service and leaked the names of 40 million people who utilized their services. The list included politicians, businessmen, and pastors, all of whom were married. Lives and careers were destroyed for a pot of stew. Esau lost a place in the line of the chosen image of God, the line of the Messiah coming forth. He was not someone who gave great thought to the decisions that he made. Chapter 28, or 26 rather, ends by telling us he married 2 Hittite women who ultimately were a source of great grief for Isaac and Rebekah. Instead, Esau's lineage was that of the Edomites, who ended up being enemies of God's people. Herod the Great was out of that lineage. He was the one who gave the order to kill all male children under the age of 2 during the time of Christ. The line of Christ through Jacob and the line of Herod through Esau, all held in the balance by choices made. Your life is nothing except the end result of all the decisions that you've made. How important is it for us to allow God to lead us in our decision making? Think about it. And all God's children said, Amen.